We'll kick things off tonight. Please feel free to come down the front and grab a seat any chance you get. I'd also like to take this opportunity to say hello to everyone tuning in live. We're live streaming this Cities of Change event on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter. So a very big and warm hello to everyone online who's tuning in. Feel free to post any questions you might have throughout the night. During this evening, we're going to talk about cities, but maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm Joshua. I am Communications Director for Loudspring. And tonight we want to start a really big discussion about cities, what they can do for us in the battle against climate change, what's working already and what more there is to do. We're going to speak a lot about digitalisation. We're going to speak a lot about climate change, and we're hoping to really educate everyone tonight about what those opportunities are for innovative businesses, as well as what a bit of the policy angle is that's currently underway, using the example of the city of Helsinki as one particular example, but also we have some really interesting information about what's happening in Stockholm as well. So thank you again for joining us tonight. Thank you to everyone tuning in online. It's a real pleasure to have you. And I'll let the evening kick off with my colleague Antonio Galizio. He is the Chief Investment Officer for Loudspring, and he's going to do a quick presentation for you all. So thank you so much for coming tonight.
Is this on? It should be on, yeah. Hello. Do I have the screen? Yeah. All right, I have the screen. We're going to start off quickly with Nuka. We have prepared a short video for you guys to take a look at quickly. Let's see how this works for us.
Real estate is the world's largest asset class, but the world's buildings consume vast amounts of energy for heating, cooling, and keeping the lights on. In fact, buildings are responsible for almost a third of CO2 emissions every year. Smarter buildings are essential for human health, productivity, and sustainability. If we're going to turn the tide on global warming, our buildings need to revolutionise. This revolution is digital. Nuka provides the digital tools that buildings need to become more efficient, productive, and sustainable. Nuka's technology also improves indoor climate, ensuring that buildings and the workers inside them are healthier and happier. Large company offices, supermarkets, and global cities are all now using Nuka. Leveraging big data is the future. Low impact, digital buildings make for high impact business.
As you can see there, Nuka is one of our core portfolio companies. We have several core portfolio companies all operating in the resource efficiency space, a lot of which are actually very apropos when it comes to building smart cities and all of the solutions that need to come together around building those. So there are quite a few solutions that we focus on. Talking about us, Loudspring, we are really a venture investment office. We work with helping, accelerating and growing early stage companies. We work very closely with those companies, and we actually help develop those companies throughout whatever time frame is needed to build them towards internationalization, among other things that we do. As per us, we're a dedicated team of individuals who have been very focused on environmental development and environmental businesses for the past 15 plus years. We're very proud of what we do. We've come from a very diverse background. I come from the US, I'm Italian. Joshua, our communications developer, is Australian. We obviously have Finns, we have Swedes, and we have people who live in London. So when it comes to general global and internationalization knowledge, we tend to have a few ideas there. Also, when it comes to us, we all share the same vision of what's necessary for the future, and we're all interested in working and give the best of our abilities to build a future that we're proud of and something that we want to live in. And for us right now, that means primarily resource efficiency. And for us as well, we see a lot of potential in Nordic technologies, which is why we want to spend our resources and our time in bringing Nordic technologies, which have struggled more than perhaps other countries and other areas of the world, to bring their knowledge and to bring their expertise to the rest of the world. And that is a very large missed opportunity when it comes to the quality of the Nordic technologies, at least as far as we've seen. When it comes to us as well, not to get too specific, but we do operate a very diverse portfolio, which we'll get into a little bit later, not that I'm going to keep you too long. But we see a market which is driven by digitalization awareness and a pure awareness that there is limited natural resources, and companies which actually are able to operate and give the same quality of life by using less resources when it comes to the energy that is produced, or what to do with resources once they've been developed, and giving you a place to reuse those resources, such as, for example, clothing or food with Rescue that's here tonight. That's where there's going to be real value in the future. And what we do, as I hit on earlier, is that we accelerate. So we work very actively, which is why we have a little bit smaller portfolio than some other investment houses, but we're very hands-on with our entrepreneurs, and we believe in our entrepreneurs. We invest very heavily in teams, building and developing those teams, and bring them into us as much as possible. Working with the entrepreneurs as well, when you have a large portfolio, allows you to build relationships, as we have, for example, with Nuka, or as we have with Eagle. And that means that as Loudspring, we can really go out and find opportunities that would otherwise not be available to those companies. And those opportunities generally tend to lead to internationalization. In the example of Eagle, we have been able to focus on Florida and the United States as a result. With Nuka, we've been able to focus on key customers in the United States, as well as winning core customers here in Finland with the city of Helsinki, which has been a very big case for us. And on top of that, obviously, access to capital and talent. Access to capital then lies at the foundation of what we do as an investment company, but we like to think of it as just the foundation for everything else that we provide. When it comes to our portfolio, I mean, I've hit on Eagle and Nuka Solutions. Actually, you've seen a video on Nuka Solutions, so I believe I'm about to show you a video on Eagle filters.
The future of energy will be renewables, and natural gas is part of the transition. But natural gas power plants are not run as efficiently as they could be. They are wasting fuel and emitting too much CO2, even as climate change has become a global emergency. In power generation, clean intake air is one of the most important factors for efficiency. Eagle Filters provides high-performance air filtration solutions that can increase fuel efficiency up to 5% and output up to 10% for gas turbines. Eagle's technology is used by local utilities such as Helsinki Energy, and also by some of the world's largest energy utilities like Astoria Energy, which provides 18% of New York City's electricity. The impact of better air filtration for the energy industry is significant in both CO2 reductions and financial savings. Eagle Filters is making an impact where it matters the most.
Yeah, so Eagle Filters, when it comes to this, is one of those companies that we're very proud to be a part of, because it provides savings in a place where not a lot of other people are focusing on. When it comes to what we're doing, we like to work around existing infrastructure because we believe that that existing infrastructure can be improved. Obviously, new buildings are coming up every day. Solar panels, wind turbines are going to be a part of the future, but we cannot discount the fact that gas turbines or older real estate will still be around 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now. So it's important for people like us to invest in and accelerate those entrepreneurs and those companies who are actually building these solutions. And Eagle Filter is one of those solutions. I mean, just hitting on it briefly, you guys can obviously look on our website, loudspring.earth, to get more information, or email any of us to get more information on any one of these portfolio companies. But Energize as well works with manufacturing. That's something that people may not think about, is that everything you're wearing tonight, everything that's here, this microphone, these chairs, have a component of compressed air in them. But how do we make that compressed air usage more efficient? Where in places like China, up to 10% of all the energy consumption goes towards compressed air. And I think it's about 5% of global energy. So this is a very, very large, where small basis points of efficiency can mean a lot, as well as Eagle Filters, which 5% on gas turbine, where California, it's about 80% of energy from California actually still comes from gas turbines, which is seen as one of the cleanest countries, states in the United States, and states generally, localities which has the most clean technology, solar, hydroelectric, but even there is still very prevalent. Swap.com, which provides a marketplace for second-hand clothing, which means that every item of clothing that can then be sold and reused extends the life, and therefore means that you do not have to double the impact for every piece of new clothing. Rescue, which is catered here today, there's no reason for good food to go to waste. Self-filtration as well provides technology that is able to filter water and filter hot water, which saves energy when it comes to the cooling and reheating, as well as provides a service to those companies which allow them to release cleaner water than they would have in the past. And when it comes to all of these solutions together, taking a broader perspective, it comes back to smart cities and smart solutions. I mean, when it comes to the definition of what a smart city is, I think there's a lot of components there. And we're proud to be able to provide a few of those components when it comes to the energy efficiency for utilities through Eagle, the connectivity through real estate for Nuka, who you'll be hearing more about later, so I don't want to spend too much time on that. Solutions for the global water market, which, I mean, as you guys have heard, is continuing to pick up. Water is becoming a huge problem, especially with potability in the United States, in the emerging countries. These are all places that are going to have to find real water solutions in the next 10, 15, 20 years. There's smarter manufacturing solutions through Energize, looking at the aspects of manufacturing that generally get overlooked and overshadowed. And how do we provide solutions there? Food waste through Rescue, and large-scale circular economies through Swap, which has over 2 million items in inventory of secondhand clothing, making it one of the largest secondhand clothing stores in the world. So all of these things come together to build what can be and what should be a smart city, providing both the energy, when at first point, when it gets manufactured, how we consume it, and what we do with waste on the back end. And this is perhaps the most important slide when we look at what is the actual impact of our companies. For us, when we look at resource efficiency, we look at the fact that as our revenue grows, are we taking away waste? Are we taking away waste that other companies, if they had that revenue instead of us, there would have been more pollution in the world? So for us, resource efficiency is very important. It's at the heart of every decision that we make, and it is what drives us. As I said earlier, we're a team of dedicated people when it comes to the environmental space. We've been working on it, we will keep working on it, and it's our mission to keep increasing these numbers exponentially, and sort of what drives us. I believe I'm going to leave you with a last video, which should be
Manufacturing is polluting the planet. 90% of manufacturing uses compressed air to make our products. Your new car, the latest phone, the shirt you buy, all made using compressed air. Compressed air systems use over 5% of electricity produced globally. Every product made contributes to climate change. Energize is making a difference. Energize provides greater efficiency and optimization of the world's compressed air systems. Their software can reduce electricity consumption by up to 30%. This is millions of tons of CO2 emissions. Energize is already responsible for 1.4 million kilowatt hours of savings every month. With Energize, the products we buy don't have to cost us the planet.
So yeah, I mean, take a look in the places that you don't expect, and we might already be making an impact in a place around you. So yeah, cheers, Joshua.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. Thank you very much, Antonio. A bit of a clap there for him. Thank you, thank you. Our next speaker is actually from this very wonderful city of Helsinki. I would like to welcome her to the podium right now. It's Katri Kussinen, who is going to be giving... here she is. She's going to be giving a presentation for us. Let me just find your slides for you very quickly. For some reason, that doesn't seem to... Here we are. And we'll get to the presenter mode for you very quickly. Here we are. Okay. Welcome, Katri. Here is your microphone. Switched on for you. And here is your little clicker. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. So nice to be here to tell you a bit about what Helsinki is doing in trying to get towards being a carbon neutral city, and especially what we are doing to improve the energy efficiency of our buildings. Our city has many goals, and one of them right now is to be the most functional smart city in the world. I think this was one of the issues that suit to this event tonight, so we chose this slogan. So we are heading to be the world's best test platform for interesting and profitable smart and clean tech innovations. And to use the best solutions to create successful business activities in Finland. that could be also exported abroad. And we are a member of Smart and Clean Foundation, and we will be hearing more about that later tonight. One of our main goals for a couple of years now has been opening different kind of data. We have this platform, Helsinki Region InfoShare website, where we have been delivering different kinds of information for a couple of years already. Very different kind of data, free of charge, and in many different formats. My unit is working with energy data of the buildings, and we've often been asked to open that data. But our previous energy data system was quite old, so we couldn't open the data through that platform, and we just didn't like to upload Excel data sheets to this platform. So we were telling quite many years that just wait, we will get a new system, and then we can have open application programming interfaces and get to data directly from the system. Our city is aiming to be very modern in climate responsibility also. So we have improved our targets so that previously our objective was to be carbon neutral in 2050. But last year, actually a bit earlier already, the goal was changed from 2050 to 2035. So we are planning to be carbon neutral 15 years earlier than when we first decided to be carbon neutral. Our shorter term target is to decrease our CO2 emissions by 60% in 2030. So that still leaves 20% more to cut in 5 last years. The current situation with our emissions, you can see it here. And the easy thing to see is that heating is actually creating most of our CO2 emissions. Transport is the second largest, and then there is electricity consumption. And these emissions mean all the emissions in city area. Of course, for us, it's easier to cut the emissions that the city organization is making. But of course, we are all the time trying to find different means to change also the total emissions in the city area. This slide is in Finnish, but I hope some of you will understand. There you can see first the emission level in 1990, and then the situation in 2015, when we had already cut 26% of the total emissions. Our city has been growing all the time, so our per capita emissions have decreased even more. They are now, I would say, 42% below the level of 1990. But here you can see also that the greenish color in the bottom is a district heating, and that's the major emission source in Helsinki. So that there is a lot to cut to get to the goal of decrease of 80%. And our business as usual scenario shows that if we don't do anything special, we will cut only 50%. So there is this almost 30% that we would need to have new actions. And so we have our new city organization started functioning in summer 2017. And one of the first things that we had to start was creating a carbon neutral action plan. So to collect all the actions we could find to meet our emission goal. And the first version of this action plan was presented last February. And after that, thank you. And after that, there have been a lot of studies to make, to find out different kinds of impacts, also other impacts than those on emissions, or how it would, what kind of impact it would have for employment, or what kind of financial impacts. But here is the index of that study. It will be in city board meeting. I think it was supposed to be there in November, but I haven't actually heard if it's already been approved or if it's about to be approved there. But anyway, it will be approved quite soon. So there are 8 chapters, as you can see, and each chapter is concentrating on these issues as mentioned. So first there's actions on traffic and transport, then actions on construction and use of buildings, and so on. And there is also one chapter for smart and clean growth, and also one chapter for our energy companies' actions. That's number 5, Helen Development Program. But altogether, this consists of 147 actions that are proposed to achieve the target. So quite a lot of them, and quite many of them are also sort of combined actions of several smaller actions. So there will be a lot to do, and currently we are developing a tool to follow how these actions are being implemented and what we are actually gaining with them. I will not be telling so much more about this action plan, but I chose just this one slide about buildings, where you can see that our target is to reduce almost 600 kilotons of CO2 in 20 years. And as it's quite easy to guess after looking the previous diagrams, that the reduction in the use of heating or in emissions of making district heating are maybe the primary goals we have to achieve. And Helsinki differs from many other cities in the world in that sense that most of our building stock is connected to district heating network. So that means that even if we change the fuels in producing heating, will of course change the emissions that our heated buildings will be creating. So that all those actions that Helen will be making are also very important. But then I will go to a bit smaller part of energy consumption in Helsinki, and that is the energy use of the city organization. Here you can see where the city itself is using energy. So I'm meaning all the city-owned buildings and streets and our transport, basically electrical transport like trams and metro. But here you can see that around 90% of the electricity used by the city organization is used in the buildings. Most of it in heating, a lot in electricity, and so little in district cooling that it looks like it's zero. But here you can also see how this energy the city organization is using is comparing to the total energy use in the city area, that even if the city organization is rather small, we still use 16% of all the district heating in Helsinki area, 13% of electricity, and this altogether is 11% of all the CO2 emissions in the city area. So there is a lot we can change also. We have been doing energy efficiency work quite a long time. For example, we've been monitoring the energy consumption in our buildings for 40 years now, so that we know how things have been changing. And this is a quite nice example that even if the number of inhabitants has been growing during past 10 years, it's the green line, it's been growing with 13%. Still, our energy consumption per capita has been going down. It's the darker blue with 19% in this time. And if we look at the energy consumption in our public buildings, it's the light blue line that's been decreasing by 15%. But to be honest, if I would show this diagram from starting like from 70s, it would look a bit different because, of course, the total consumption has been growing compared to that time. But the number of our citizens is a lot higher also. But since the growth was so long and the energy consumption really was growing during past decades, it's been really great to see that now we are finally decreasing the consumptions also. So I mentioned that we've been monitoring the energy consumption of city-owned buildings for 40 years. We had a good system for that. It has been serving us really nicely during all these years. But of course, it's now really old, and it doesn't serve all the purposes we currently need. It was when it was created, we thought that all the people who would be interested in energy data would be like janitors of the buildings, maybe building managers, and then those few energy experts working for the city and looking at the big data. But times have changed, and really many people are interested in having this data. For example, schools would like to use it in education. Citizens would like to see how city buildings are doing. And there are many kinds of needs for that data. Also today, as all the energy data is in digital form and there are so many meters in the building compared to, like, say, 30 years ago, we are not anymore interested in collecting just the total consumptions, but there are many meters for different systems that we would also like to follow. And we've noticed that we can't actually say so much about energy efficiency when we are just measuring energy consumption. We need to include other kind of information to energy data. So we had a lot of expectations when we started tendering process for a new energy consumption and indoor environment monitoring system last year. And it was a long process. But finally, we had 3 companies that we were negotiating with, and in the end, Nuuka Solutions was selected as our service provider. We are now in that stage that our system is being implemented, so we don't have any experiences of that yet, but it will be available during the year, during next year, so quite soon we will see how it will work. What we are trying to achieve with smart energy management of buildings is there are a lot of things. We are trying to streamline the energy management processes between different sectors. Of course, we have been finding energy saving potential until now already, but of course we can always use better tools for that and in different portfolios. and of course then invest in those buildings where it's most profitable. Of course, we want to perform quick reactions to changes in the consumptions, and support can clarify the reporting of the performance against targets. Our building stock is so huge and there are so many changes all the time, and so many of our buildings are being renovated 1 year when their consumptions are of course quite different than compared to some other year, that our reporting has been quite challenging for a long time. And of course we need this data to support the communication and visualization a lot more than what we needed 10 or 15 years ago. And in the end, I will just tell you a bit about some other projects we are doing with energy, which are linked to improving energy efficiency or using energy data. We've just started a project called Energy-Wise Cities with 6 biggest cities in Finland. And that project is financed by 6 cities programs, and it aims to boost the role of the participating cities towards international example areas of energy efficient housing, zero energy construction, diversified energy systems, energy efficiency monitoring, and end user guidance. So this project will be partly linked with our NUCA implementation, and the other cities are quite interested in hearing our results as well. These are the milestones that we are trying to achieve in the project. There will be developing intelligent energy systems for zero energy buildings and areas, improving the energy efficiency in real estates and tenements in the cities. We'll be engaging and activating building users and developing user data collection. In the project, we'll create pilot simulations, modelings, and real-time measurements. We'll be promoting new business opportunities and enabling new products and reference possibilities for businesses. And in the end, we'll evaluate and develop the development demand for policy instruments in city planning and legislations. And these actions we're taking in project pilot cities, we hope they will significantly decrease energy consumption and carbon dioxide emissions. Then there is a project that's been already ongoing for a couple of years called My Smart Life. This is an European Union Lighthouse project started almost exactly 2 years ago and still going on for 1 more year. There are 2 other lighthouse cities besides Helsinki, Nantes in France and Hamburg in Germany, and then 4 follower cities, and several partners and many actions in the project. And here is a picture of Helsinki and the zones where our actions are taking place. Very different sorts of actions, improving energy efficiency in residential buildings built in 70s, piloting electrical vehicles, using 3D city model, and new high-performance residential buildings in Skalasatama. And then there is Viki Environment House, which is the only house here owned by the city, where we are doing many kinds of pilots, energy saving, optimization, smart renewable energy storage, demand response, cooling and heating walls. And the last slides are about this open 3D energy and climate atlas, which is a platform where we can show a lot of different kind of information. And this is the place where they've been asking all the energy data as well. We already have there something like energy labels of certain buildings owned by the city. Then currently there have been calculated energy consumptions for building types of certain era, because naturally we can't get the real energy data of private buildings here. But my understanding is that we are trying to get people and houses interested in joining this platform and to provide their real data so that people could then compare with their neighbors on the same street or something like that. And here is another picture of visualization of heat losses filmed with heat camera. So this is a platform where we can deliver a lot of different sorts of information. It was being piloted already 2 years ago, but now it's been opened in last February. So you can go there and see what kind of data is available. But this was my presentation about things that are going on in Helsinki. If you are interested in hearing more, you can always come and ask questions of me. I will be staying here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Katri. Thank you. Hey, I wanted to remind everyone that before you run away, she wanted to run away really quickly from the stage. I know that she's having such a good time up here. But any questions that anyone might have for any of the presenters, feel free to throw your hand up. I would start with a very quick one and just ask that this shift from a 2050 goal to a 2035 goal, that's a pretty significant change. So what was the motivating factor, or what changed with the city of Helsinki to bring that target forward in time? Do you have any insight on that? Feel free to use the mic.
When we committed in 2020 targets, it was maybe around 2010. We were not quite sure what we could really achieve, but quite soon it turned out that our targets had been too modest. We exceeded them before 2020 and had to change our target. And of course, at the same time, we've been given a lot of information that actually CO2 emissions are being reduced very slowly compared to what our environment would need. So we thought that maybe we should be a bit more brave with our goals. And I think it's a quite normal situation in Finland that we want to be really realistic and think what we can guarantee that we can succeed. So it's always a bit easier for us to commit in very realistic targets. But this time we really wanted to be ambitious and show an example. And of course, many other big cities in Finland are also quite ambitious. And I think Turku is now planning to be carbon neutral already 2029.
Okay, I see what's happening here. So when can we expect an announcement from the city that it's 2028?
I can't say anything about that.
Okay, well, a bit of competition goes a long way, it seems. So thank you so much again. A round of applause for Katri. That's really a great presentation about what's happening with the city of Helsinki. So we will now transition to our next speaker, who is going to be actually working quite closely through Nukka Solutions. I welcome to the stage Olli Pakkanen. He's going to give you all a fascinating rundown into the work of this fantastic company. So he's right next to me. Welcome to the stage, Olli. Round of applause.
Real estate is the world's largest asset class, but the world's buildings consume vast amounts of energy for heating, cooling, and keeping the lights on. In fact, buildings are responsible for almost a third of CO2 emissions every year. Smarter buildings are essential for human health, productivity, and sustainability. If we're going to turn the tide on global warming, our buildings need to revolutionise. This revolution is digital. Nuka provides the digital tools that buildings need to become more efficient, productive, and sustainable. Nuka's technology also improves indoor climate, ensuring that buildings and the workers inside them are healthier and happier. Large company offices, supermarkets, and global cities are all now using Nuka. Leveraging big data is the future. Low impact, digital buildings make for high impact business.
Good evening, everyone. Pleasant to be here today. If we look at the different objectives that smart cities have today, there are a lot of different things. And we at Nuka believe that the smart buildings are forming the foundation for these smart cities. According to Deloitte, there are 3 different objectives that smart cities should have. First is the sustainability. So cities basically should aim for better sustainability, which means CO2 reductions, energy efficiency. And it is also worth noting that in the global cities, buildings are consuming 70% of the energy consumption, and they account for up to 30% of global emissions as well. Secondly, buildings should aim for better quality of life for inhabitants in the cities, and thirdly, for better economic competitiveness in order to attract better workforce to the cities. And we believe that smart buildings has a lot to do with this. According to Innovation Center of Helsinki, which is called Forum Virium, they state that 2 most important tools for creating smart Helsinki is the new technology and open access to the data. And we at Nuka are providing the both things. So basically new technology to the buildings and of course open access to the data in the buildings. Next, let's talk more about Helsinki and their own objectives more from the environmental point of view. Helsinki has committed to the different energy saving programs, like Katri mentioned earlier. So they are trying to achieve carbon neutrality by 2035. They also want to be an international trendsetter in energy efficiency. And to achieve these goals, they want to involve the building users based on the data to achieve these goals. Another interesting case is Smart and Clean Foundation / project that Tiina Kähä is going to talk more about today. But the target of the project is to improve the indoor air quality in the buildings and create new business around utilizing the indoor data in the buildings. And actually, if we take a look at this list, Nuka is helping City of Helsinki in all of these objectives. And right now, Nuka is implementing its software to the 1,000 buildings in Helsinki area. So this building portfolio consists of different libraries, schools, hospitals, and so on. And basically what we provide for them is a platform that collects the data from the buildings into one user interface. If you take a look at more specifically what we are doing for Helsinki, we connect to the different data sources in the buildings in Helsinki area. Those data sources are, for example, building automation systems, indoor air sensors from the Smart and Clean project, data services of different utility and energy companies, energy and water meters, feedback system, which is providing user feedback data from the buildings, and third-party IT solutions like Builder.com's ERP maintenance system. Nuka is technology agnostic, and nowadays we have approximately 100 different interfaces to the different data sources globally. Then we bring the data to the Nuka platform, which is built on Microsoft Azure database, and then we provide different software modules. And in the case of City of Helsinki, we provide energy reporting for 1,000 public buildings over here. So that basically means energy reporting, cost reporting, emission reporting on a building and portfolio level, main meter and sub-meter level. And this enables reacting in real time to the consumption deviations, which helps buildings to improve energy efficiency. Secondly, we are providing our HVAC and indoor air climate tools for approximately 100 buildings during 4 years period. And this means that we can see that in these buildings, the processes like heating, ventilation, cooling, those processes are working as they should based on the real-time data and analytics. And also we can see that, for example, in this room, the CO2 levels and temperature are remaining on a good level. So basically we help to Helsinki to improve indoor air quality in the buildings, which moreover has effects to the well-being and productiveness of the people in the buildings. We also connect to the feedback data in the buildings. So we get data from the feedbackly system. And this is interesting because now we can actually compare the actual indoor data and then the actual user satisfaction in the buildings. And we can have interesting correlation and analysis based on that data. So that's an interesting case as well. Then we are providing different options which are related to the space efficiency of the buildings, waste and sustainability reporting, and demand response applications. And demand response basically means that we can basically control the building's energy consumption based on the, for example, electricity market price, which is heavily volatile. But those are things that we are taking a look in the future. But based on this, we will provide a user interface, including different kind of reports, key performance indicators, automatic alarms and notifications that are sent to the different stakeholders in the buildings, like maintenance people and technical managers. And then we provide a API connection to the third-party systems, and of course, to all the different third parties that Helsinki wants to. So for example, students in the school can have access to the data via Nuuka. And basically, this all is trying to help to Helsinki to achieve the aforementioned goals in terms of carbon neutrality, energy efficiency, better indoor air quality, and building user involvement. Next, if we take a look at what is a smart building and how actually smart buildings use Nuuka. This building over here that you can see is a building called The Edge, based in Amsterdam. It's Deloitte's headquarters. And it's been stated to be the smartest building in the world. It has received the highest ever BREEAM score, so it's the most sustainable building in the world as well. And this building is currently using Nuuka's analytics. And this building has a lot of different systems, thousands of data points, a lot of different people managing the building. And we believe that smart building is all about open interfaces and aggregating the data from different silos into one platform. And from building owner's point of view, the question may be, what is the energy performance of the building? What are the indoor air conditions in the building? And is the building actually working as it should and was planned? In this building, we analyze different data. For example, different processes in the building, like cooling, heating, ventilation. And all this data is real time. And based on this, we can, for example, see that if it has consequences to the indoor air quality in the building, and moreover to the energy efficiency and energy consumption of the building. Then coming back to the city of Helsinki and taking kind of the future outlook, what's possible. So now when we start gathering the data next year into one platform, this will enable different models to be utilized in the future. And we see the buzzword machine learning as a really good possibility over here. And different kind of machine learning applications, such as improving the efficiency of specific air handling unit in the building or optimizing the space efficiency in the buildings, is possibly by utilizing machine learning if you have the data into one place, which in this case is Nuuka. So this will enable to even further develop the indoor air quality, energy efficiency, and space efficiency of the buildings. And we believe this is what is smart building, and this will lead to a smarter city. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ollie. Real pleasure to have you up here on stage. I'll put a quick shout out to everyone here if there are any questions for Ollie about the work that Nuuka is doing. I, of course, have one already. What is some of that, that low-hanging fruit that many buildings go for when it comes to a system like Nuuka and getting them into the building? Where can they start that's the easiest place?
Low-hanging fruit, I would say we have a lot of different module applications inside of Nuuka. And for some, it may be even too much information. So I would say you should start with the energy reporting, get the basics stuff like ongoing. But after that, you should go for making sure that your indoor air quality in the building is good and tracking down the different processes in the buildings. So that's kind of the way to go.
So just getting a general overview of what the building's doing is like the starting point, and it's quite a simple way for any kind of building owner to get involved with the platform, you'd say?
Yes, and it also depends. If you have a big building portfolio, then you may use Nuuka from different angle, and you want to manage the portfolio on a big level. But if you want to go really deep into the one building and specific processes, you have a tool for that as well. So it depends on the need.
Sure. And how many of these modules or applications are now kind of available for the building user or owner? Like how many has Nuuka already supplied? And as I understand it, there's always this opportunity to do some customization around those modules as well. So what's the number now, and what's the potential there?
Right now, I think there is 8 different software modules. But as I mentioned, we are now creating a new services based on the machine learning, because now we have all the data from many different buildings, and this is really something that we want to focus more in the future. I wouldn't say that the amount of the different software modules are going to increase in the future, but I think we need to focus on the quality of those modules and really creating value out of the data.
Cool. Sounds very good to me. Any questions? Yes, we do have a question here. Let me come to you with the microphone.
Can you mention a few apparatus which you have to change in the old buildings? Apparatus. What do you have to change in the old buildings?
Was that operator?
Mitä välineistöä tai laitteistoja teidän pitäisi vaihtaa noissa vanhoissa rakennuksissa?
Yeah, sometimes so question was what kind of hardware we need to change in old buildings in order to implement Nuuka software. So sometimes we use third parties to install new indoor sensors, for example, like in this Smart and Clean project, which enables to get the data related to the indoor air quality. Sometimes if the building automation system is really old, that needs to be renovated in order to get the correct interface to that specific building automation system. So that's something we need to do in some cases in old buildings.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot, Ollie. Another round of applause for Ollie. Thank you. That was for Nuuka Solutions. So thanks a lot for joining me on stage. Any other questions for Ollie, feel free to grab him on the side, offer him a beer. They're free, so enjoy those. And please, everyone sitting here, make sure you get a beer in your hand or a glass of wine. And to everyone online, stay tuned. Feel free to share the live feed if you are so inclined. We'd really appreciate it. More people can learn about smart cities and all of these wonderful things. Smart and clean cities actually is one thing. So that is our next presenter is Tina Kaho, who I've probably just mispronounced her name terribly, but I'm Australian and that's what I do. So I welcome to the stage Tina, and she is from Smart and Clean, and she's now going to give a presentation. So thank you, Tina.
Okay, thank you, Joshua. And is everybody enjoying themselves? Okay, yay! Good. Okay, really happy to be here, and thank you, Joshua, and thank you, Lassi, for the invitation. I actually can't see you at all. Is this possible for the lights, or is it?
I'm sure we can ask the guys.
I mean,
honestly.
it's fine, but you know, it's very bright. But okay, before I start my presentation, just quickly about Smart and Clean, as it must have been referred for a few times already with Katri and Olli as well. So we are a 5-year step change project here in Helsinki metropolitan area, and our aim is really to change the way how we do business together with the cities and businesses and the state and the R&D organizations. Because the end goal is carbon neutral and circular cities, what we need to do. But now I also have a video, and it's a bit different than the last ones, but let's see if this works. One more. Yes.
Oletko kyllästynyt jatkuvaan ilmaston lämpenemiseen? Onko mielestäsi vaikeaa hengittää ilman saasteiden takia? Jos vastasit kumpaankaan kysymykseeni kyllä, minulla on sinulle vastaus. Hyvää huomenta! Minä olen Joona ja tänään minä tulin kertomaan teille, miksi minä olen hyvä ihminen ja miksi teidän pitäisi olla juuri niin kuin minä. Minä en roskaa, koska minä olen kova poika. Eli kiltti, oivallinen, välittävä, ympäristön kaveri. Minä kuljen polkupyörällä. Polkupyöräilystä ei ole mitään haittaa luonnolle. Ja polkupyöräily kasvattaa lihaksia. Katsopas näitä tuloksia. Yksi asia, mihin voi kiinnittää huomiota, on piilovesi. Mutta Joona, mitä on piilovesi? No hyvä kun kysyit. Piilovesi tarkoittaa sitä, kuinka paljon yhden tuotteen tekemiseen on käytetty vettä. Tässä on 2 omenaa, jotka painavat noin 200 grammaa. Niiden piilovesi on noin 140 litraa. Mutta sehän on aivan hirmuisesti. No totta turiset, mutta se ei ole mitään verrattuna lihan piiloveteen. Noin 200 grammaa painavan hampurilaisen piilovesi on noin 2400 litraa. Se on melkein 20 kertaa enemmän kuin 2 omenalla. Sen takia minäkin olen vegaani. Go green or go home. Ja jos syöt lihaa, niin silloin viattomia eläimiä kuolee. Tahdotko sinä olla syyllinen tämän söpön eläimen kuolemaan? Sitä minäkin. Minä käyn lyhyissä suihkuissa. Matikka tuokio. Jos ihminen käy noin 10 minuutin suihkuissa, ja suihku käyttää noin 15 litraa vettä minuutissa, niin silloin ihminen käyttää 55 000 litraa vettä vuodessa vain suihku. Jos sen ajan puolittaa ja käy noin 5 minuutin suihkuissa, niin silloin voi säästää lähes 30 000 litraa vettä vuodessa.
Okay, give hand to Joona. Fantastic, Joona just put us to the right picture. I think that why we are doing this thing is really for the children, for the people, the humans, for us. And as you all know, we are in a really big hurry. So with the climate change, these graphs are really familiar with you guys. And our point with Smart and Clean is really that we really need to move fast. We are not really happy with piloting anymore. We need to go so fast towards carbon neutrality and circular economy kind of way of living that we can't postpone this anymore. And as you saw there with Joona's video, we had a little competition earlier this year. We told young people that, okay, make a video of your things, how you can save the world or do things for the climate. And this is one of the videos, and if you want to go to munteko.fi, you can find some more videos. And the point is here that I think the children are ready. I think the young people are ready for this. Because the big thing when that happens with the kind of behavior change, then we still have hope. But our guys us, the businesses, the cities, and the governments really need to give the framework for these people to live in these cities. As you all know, these are the typical carbon footprints for Finnish people. We are around 10,000 here in Finland and in the Nordics. We should all go towards maybe 3,000. How many of you have calculated your own? How many of you are under 5,000? I don't see any hands. Okay. But back to the business. These are really old numbers. These are from the Sitra years that I was also, we made some market studies about urbanization and the business opportunities. And I'm sure Loudspring has more new numbers about the market opportunities in clean tech and in green growth. But we believe that the change is happening here in the cities. I think you all agree this. And Katri already showed this graphs about Helsinki, where is the carbon footprint coming from. And now we are very much focusing on heating, mobility, electricity, and the buildings. But this is the real tough one, the consumption and the eating, where Loudspring is also tackling the food issue. How do we live? How do we move? How do we live our lives? And there we need really new solutions and new ways of doing things. And this is our target. We started 2 years ago. And as I said, we are quite a unique project in a way that we are in a form of a foundation, fixed term one. And we have donations from the cities, businesses, and the state, and the universities. And what we mean by this testbed idea, we started with this work by thinking, okay, let's make some really great projects where our companies can make good references. And then they kind of scale globally and everybody's happy. We get some export opportunities for Finnish companies, and then the cities can grow and get more jobs and investments. But it's not that simple, I think. This is our end goal. We are working in basically the whole urban environment you are looking in right now here in Helsinki metropolitan region. So we are working with the energy, mobility, citizen solutions, circular economy issues, and then built environment. And this is, of course, the tough part, to really reach these end goals over here. Let's say we have the world's most attractive emission-free mobility. I think it's a tricky one, because we all know that we can change the fuels for the cars or walk a bit more, but really to have these sustainable mobility solutions as a default and everyday use in the city, it's a bit trickier. But just very quickly about Smart and Clean, we have 29 partners, really good players from the company side and from the city side, as well as the state. So we have all the players that we need. And this is maybe a picture that I can stop for a second, because this is trying to portray the way we work. So we are here, we are like a small team, an operator in the middle. And like I said, the cities, companies, and the R&D community and the government has promised us to have the funding. And luckily for me, they already said it 2016, and they are now funding us for 5 years. So we can concentrate on the work, and we don't need to do the fundraising every year, because I think with this kind of challenging projects, this is like an operational issue, but I have to say this, that I think we would have given up many times, because these things are not so easy to implement. But so here we are like an accelerator, an orchestrator. There are many players like us in the world, but as we all know, these things, these projects or kind of ecosystems don't just happen. You need some glue to meet people like we are here today to happen. But these projects that I can give you a couple of examples are really the showcases that we are working on, but this is the end goal. We are really working on a new PPPP model that could be an example to the world. this is something different that we are doing here in Helsinki with the businesses, with the cities. So this becomes a kind of permanent model of working. Because like I said, we all love pilots, we all love projects, kind of trials and all that. But I think we are so much in a hurry, like I said in the beginning, that we need to go beyond that, to scale up. And that's really the hard part. But this is where we are aiming. Okay. About testbeds, this is maybe a new number to you as well. It was for me that only in Helsinki region we have about 70 physical or digital testbeds within smart and clean kind of area. And in Finland it's calculated or estimated, to be fair, that there are about 1,000 testbeds. And do you know how many of these testbeds have actually set rules and guidelines for companies? What are the targets, how to come in and what to do? Give me a guess. 0. Sorry, you have 5? 1. And this is not scientific. There is this one great project called 1Z, which is in the the Baltic Sea with autonomous ships. And they have done a great job because I think they have kind of the setup in a way that it's very clear what to do there, when, what are really the big targets. But we believe that testbeds can be the tools for the change. Because if we succeed in working with testbeds in a way that we make some solutions and a bit more holistic solutions with ecosystem, not only one single technologies really work, then we learn and then we scale. And it's kind of all in control somehow. Let's say for example, for Helsinki city. And this is very important, not to bore you, but just to give you an idea what we call smart and clean. We have created these criteria that our project need to fulfill, and they always need to improve the quality of the life of the citizen for Joona and the guys. They always need to have some international reference value, so something novel, something in a scale that hasn't been done anywhere in the world. They always need to have business potential, but really sustainable business potential in a way that we want it to be permanent, not only a trial, or not something that is funded with the public money. Then public-private partnership, and then of course the emission reduction or circular economy impacts. And we are doing many things. Just to give you a glance, with transportation, there is so much going on. But for example, just last week there was a Aviapolis mobility testbed being launched in Vantaa, next to the airport, where all kinds of different kinds of mobility solutions are being tested. Then this is our first project that is quite a nice project in a way that the idea came from Vaisala, the sensor company, and they kind of said that, okay, we have these really cool sensors that are quite small, a bit bigger than a beer can, instead of those big containers that we see all over the world. What if we make an IoT sensor network that would be online and giving data to be utilized? And now this sensor network is working, and the data has been just opened. So I'm inviting all of you developers to do something with the data, develop applications to consumers or mobility management or whatever. So this is one of the test beds that is now in use. Then we have one I used to call not so sexy project, but I think it's very sexy at the moment. When you say word microplastics, everybody's like, oh, is this about microplastics? Because stormwater management is something that doesn't ring the bell so much. So there's a test bed in the Helsinki region testing different technologies, how to remove microplastics and heavy metals from the water. In energy sector, of course, there's a big transformation going on, and I could maybe mention Smart Otaniemi area that is a big test bed for new development. And then this is maybe potentially our biggest case, which is called Renovation Leap, and the idea is to completely renew the way we do renovations in the buildings. And only mentioned the indoor air quality project. I noticed that I don't have the slide, but also there the ambition level is very high. We are aiming for a model where we can kind of have good indoor air quality as a service. And to be able to transform the cities, I don't know if Katri is still here, to buy good indoor air instead of walls. I don't know when can we make this. But we have a really group of, for example, in this Renovation Leap, a really group of very ambitious companies, and then the city providers who own the buildings, where we are going to test these renovations next year in real life. And then we have an urban food case as well. We are kind of supporting the local digital platforms to connect consumers, logistics, and these scattered players. So that's going on. And then finally, we haven't started this officially, but next year we are going to work on the circular economy of plastics. And the working title is that all the plastic is recycling or in circular mode in the capital region. And that's a really ambitious target, but we are starting to work next year. But to end my kind of thoughts, we collected some ideas. What we believe at the moment is really the elements of the great PPPP that we need to work on to achieve these really, really ambitious results. We need to work with ecosystems. Nobody can do this alone, and we really need to partner and have public and private partnerships. The market dialogue and how do we do these kind of procurements in the future is really the key. And then my favorite is from pilots to permanent. So we really should have some kind of mechanisms or commitments to the things that actually work, that they are going to be scaled up and used. And then finally the testbed Finland, which is now an idea, but Business Finland is working on, so we could really have a network of testbeds that kind of communicate together, and then also the businesses can communicate together. So this is a really quick glance of the work we are doing, but our motto is do, not just talk. So I stop here, and I believe that we can do this together. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Gina. I don't really know where to start with questions myself. There was a lot covered there, the P. A lot of P's at the presentation. What are some of the major challenges you found along the way with your public-private partnerships? What are some of the pain points, to use more P's in my question?
Well, I think the obvious one is that although people are great and everybody thinks this is great, this is what we need to do, but our structures are not supporting that. We have the silos, we have the purchasing agreements and all kinds of regulations and stuff that are preventing people to do kind of things differently. I guess that's the point.
Okay, and how do we overcome this particular challenge? Is there any ideas in the pipeline, to use another P word, in the discussion?
Well, I think we have to do learning by doing, and this is what I mean really with the do. So all these things, we have now 7 projects with 100 companies in them, and they're progressing, but we are learning all the time. So I think that's encouraging. And then we also believe that people are the doers. So we are, for example, I can advertise now that we have our new web pages coming in a few weeks' time, where we have more content, and there are the people telling what they are actually doing. So I hope it's going to be an inspiration.
Great. I hope it's been inspirational for everyone here. Are there any questions from the audience for Tina? Or, I mean, there's a lot to digest. Are we able to get the slides to everyone if they'd like to check them out? Is that possible?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
I'm happy
great.
to share. Sure.
That's great. Well, then we'll share and share alike. So thank you very much. Another round of applause for Tina. And check out Smart and Clean's new website coming soon. It's very exciting. No problem. I'll now just welcome on to the stage. We've been speaking a lot about Helsinki, and that's a good thing. It's doing wonderful things. But now we've got some competition from Stockholm. We had to bring them into this, the Swedes. So I would now very warmly like to bring to the stage Mika Hakosalo. Here he is. He's now going to take the stage and present some of his work that's taking place over in Stockholm. So thank you. There's your microphone. Here's your clicker, and I'm going to go into presenter mode now for you, and the stage is now yours.
Great. It is very bright here, actually. Yeah, actually, I have been working in Helsinki before. I was the director of Climate Info, working very much with consumers. So after that, I moved in 2013 to Stockholm, and I have been working with making Stockholm a more sustainable, smarter city. So I will briefly tell about that project. I have removed everything related to buildings, to energy saving, energy efficiency. So we have 21 smart solutions. I'm going to talk about 2 of them. So I've really narrowed it down. Just to give a brief glimpse about Stockholm's ambitions, Stockholm wants to be fossil fuel free in 2040, and that's a different thing than carbon neutral. Currently our district heating is 90% is renewables. So we have 10% left. So we see the challenge in Stockholm being fossil fuel free in 2040 in traffic and transportation. So that's basically more the thing that I will now narrow down to. So we're looking very much into when we started in 2014 constructing the project, we didn't have any strategy for a smart city. And when the strategy came in 2016, what we defined was that we want to be not Stockholm City as an organization, but we wanted Stockholm as a place to be smart. And it's a really, really big difference. And also the transition, our IT group or administration, they were currently, back in 2015, 2016, they were working only on internal systems like computers, software for workers. They didn't look anything about the digitalization of the city, working across with businesses and so forth. And that changed very much in 2016, 2017. And defining that Stockholm wants to be a smart city as a place defines that you want to cooperate with people and actors in the city. Not only the city itself, but also can be state, regional, but private companies as well. So part of that was what we're doing here, and what I'm explaining is Stockholm happened to have the world's largest publicly owned optical fiber network, and the city owns a company called Stockholm. So what we had there in the bottom, we have fiber basically everywhere. So 99% of all people and 99% of all companies are connected to a fast connectivity. So we were looking at can we bring sensors on top of that actually city would control or be procuring, or in somehow in partnerships we will be creating or bringing out there. So we were looking at what part of the city could be wise to do that, and we start out. So we defined an area called Slakthusområdet, and it's if you probably everyone in Finland knows Globen, because that's where the first ice hockey world championship came. So it's the area that is next to that. So it's an old industrial area from the beginning of the 20th century that's going to be refurbished, and 5,000 new apartments and 10,000 new workplaces going to be built there. But we have big arenas. We have Tele2, Globen and Hovet, and they're attracting already now very big masses of people. So it's quite empty in daytimes, and it can be 30,000 people in the evenings or nights. And probably everyone here is a fan of Justin Bieber. I mean, yeah, we are not at all. So when Justin Bieber came to this particular area, it took 4 hours to empty the arena area. 4 hours. So kids were looking for parents. No mobile phones were working. They didn't know where they were. So they were running over highways looking for mom and dad. Mom and dad obviously came from Oran to Sweden to bring the kids with cars to the place. So the huge traffic jams, lots of congestion and all. So that was something, and that was also the initial point. Could we figure out beforehand, collecting with sensor data, what kind of events can cause this kind of traffic congestion? Could we then inform people beforehand about this? So that was one of the origin points. Another thing that we realized was there's a large parking area underneath the Tele2 arena. And when people come from the north of Stockholm into the parking, they tend to also drive out from the same exit. But to exit the arena, they have first to go south into a roundabout, and then they go north. And causing, once again, they stop the traffic in the tunnel of Söderles tunnel, almost all the way to the Essingeleden, can cause traffic. And it can be a Sunday afternoon. People come back from the summer cottages, and suddenly there's a huge traffic congestion Sunday afternoon that you didn't know, just because these people are exiting in the wrong. So could we inform these drivers to take the other exit, so you don't cause this kind of traffic jams? So it's very much about the information. So that was kind of the origin point. So we started with, okay, what kind of sensors could we have there? What kind of platforms would be used? What kind of artificial intelligence or machine learning could be wise to do? And what ways could we communicate with people? So that was kind of the origin point what we started. So this is a matter about basically PPP, public-private partnership, but bringing also people into that picture. So we were working across different organizations within the city and departments, and also seeing that, okay, we defined that we're not going to look anything about energy efficiency. We're going to see how can we reduce the transport emissions, can we reduce congestion, can we increase the quality of life for them visiting the area, but also living and working there? And can we in some way create also economic growth or efficiency in the city resource? And the idea was that we are looking at different deliverables, so it can be a prototype that we are performing with the data, it can be a hybrid solution between prototype and a future vision, or it can be just we want to explain these kind of things you can do with data. So we wanted to have a shared open platform, basically being able then to invite other actors to use the data for different kind of purposes. So we selected a set of sensors that we believe could be used for many different purposes. So we wanted, okay, this information can be used by us in the city, it can be used by traffic planners, city planners, it can be used by city decision makers, but also different kind of private actors. And we believe that you can also develop different kind of application for users and consumers. So that was kind of the origin point. Very much think about what kind of sensors and what kind of data can gather that can have multiple uses. And so we ended up in using two types of sensors. So we have this kind of sensor that is a Swedish-based company called Facility Labs that basically it's not anything difficult. I mean, they're reading camera sensor plates, but the difficult thing is to anonymize that because you cannot store private information. So what they gather is that we get a digital hash, and then they're running that digital hash against the transport authorities' all registered vehicles in Sweden. And based on that, we get all the information that in the transport authority, except we don't know who owns. If it's a private person or company, we don't know who owns that. We don't know what address it is. We don't know person numbers or organizational numbers. We know if it's a woman or a man. We know in what postal area code that vehicle is registered and so forth. So that kind of information. But obviously we also know if it's a hybrid, if it's an electrical car, it's a cargo car, if it's a bus, if it's a taxi, whatever it is. So we get very, very rich data out of that sensor. And the other thing is that we also put Wi-Fi sensors to register people movements, pedestrians, bicyclists in the area, how they move, how they come, do they come by bus, subway, do they come by car, how do they exit there, and so forth. And then we also saw that weather data is really, really essential in this, knowing do people choose bicycling, walking, public transport, or car driving, and is it affected by the weather or by other circumstances? For instance, to find out what kind of modal transition or division will be for a certain type of event. Is it dependent on the weather, or is it dependent on who is actually performing? So if it's sunny and Justin Bieber, or if it's like really winter and Justin Bieber, is there any difference? So that kind of issues. So what we created was a zone. So we have 4 points where vehicles exit and enter the area. So we get an overview of everything going in and out. And then we have, original our plan was to put up 45 Wi-Fi nodes. We have currently up around half of them, and very much in the area of where the arenas are. And also there, it was a matter about when a person with a mobile phone passes this kind of Wi-Fi node, there's a MAC address or a signal, and then we can see that, okay, what path have they walked, how fast have they gone, and so forth. And obviously, we have to also anonymize that data. So everything goes into this kind of platform. I mean, you have IBM's platform is one of them. There's obviously many others. And I think that one let's see if there is, okay, I will go here and show. So we were looking very much in this end. So we started with traffic analysis of a city. So we started with the users. So there were people with data science experience. So what kind of data do they want to work with? What kind of tools do they want? What kind of functionality do they want? What kind of data do we have to bring in, and so forth? What kind of enrichments and analytics we have to perform? The next step would be more conventional users that are not scientific about that. It can be a planner in the city wants to do that. They can use very much of the tools also already existing in the platform. We were also looking very much on dashboards. I mean, understanding not only about the data, but also about all the sensors, or the functioning, or the providing data. Is some of them down, and so forth? So unit handling dashboards were created. And then we were looking at, could we create also different kind of web applications with third-party applications and to end users. So we were looking very much on the user side and user needs, and based on that we define what we want to do in the platform. And I think that is quite different approach. And we're working very much with design thinking workshop and so forth to define what the user needs, what kind of who are the users overall, and what do they need, and what would be good to develop. So my role actually in this project was what we saw, that this has to be a close cooperation with the city and in this case IBM. So IBM had a development team, and they have a Scrum Master, they did sprint sprints, and I was 50% product owner, and another 50% was from IBM. So we were working very closely, and my role was very much to work with the users of the city. So I think that this is also something that you need to think when you want to create a smarter city. You need to completely crash and start really new thinking about how you cooperate, how you co-create things. You cannot just be procuring someone else to do the things. You have to really get involved and be part of the process. So that was something we were doing. And here are just some example of graphs of showing how they're fluctuating between different sensors and passages per minute and so forth. We can see that, okay, what are the carbon dioxide emissions of passing vehicles, so we get an idea what categories they are. So we can, for instance, see it's very small, but the largest category is from 100 to 150. We can also see that, okay, how many cars, for instance, are hybrid. And another thing that we have a shift of political majority now. So we have the red-green majority, and now we will have a blue-green, actually. And the blue-green majority has defined that they want to create environmental zones in the city of Stockholm, meaning that you will somehow restrict vehicle traffic into those zones. Currently, you don't know anything about the vehicle traffic. You just know the amounts. You don't know what type of vehicle. With our sensors, we can define, is this a Euroclass 5 vehicle entering the area, or is it a 6, or is it a 3 or a 4 or whatever? And what we are doing, or have done, is that we have combined with air quality measurements to define a correlation that what type of vehicles actually causing, for instance, problems with particle emissions or nitrogen oxide emissions or whatever it is. So really get define and see what time of the day and who is the problem, what is the problem. And maybe it's so that you don't need to restrict fully all cars during the whole year. Maybe you need to restrict them, part of the vehicles in part of the year and part of the day or so forth. This kind of information is crucial in defining a more adaptive environmental zone. Because conventionally you just ban everything that you don't want and then you hope for the best, but you don't follow up that. Did it have effect? Was it true? And so forth. So this is a bit different approach, for instance, what is happening in German cities. So this is something we can also do. We can also, as we know the vehicle type, we can address directly drivers. You can say that, hey, great, you're driving an electrical car. You're part of our ambitious goals to be fossil fuel free. We can direct also messages, for instance, that we can tell that these trees will be prohibited for this type of car, so we will put a fine on or a payment for this. So that we could introduce that very early on, so maybe you have 1 year time to change your vehicle into something else. So it's not a surprise when you suddenly say, oh, I cannot enter it, it's bad. We can also direct people, for instance, I was telling about the parking thing. We can tell, are you going north? Please park in this part of the parking hall and exit this way. So we can also, if the car is registered in the northern post numbers, we can give that kind of information. We are also looking at, could we use this kind of flow analytics from pedestrians to define pre-program, for instance, the lights in the event area. So we know that, okay, this is a Justin Bieber event. It will take 4 hours to empty the arena afterwards. Then the lights have to be stronger, much longer. Or we will know what kind of path they want to walk to exit, for instance, to the subway stations or whatever. So we could pre-program, used on the flow data, we could say that we know that event type, okay, this is this type of event. People tend to come, for instance, to football matches 1 hour earlier, so we would then build up the lighting system based on that. So it would not be standard from one event to another or standard from one day to another. You can also look at very much of connectivity and connect street lights and see that where people are, I was mentioning about Justin Bieber, there was not enough connectivity. You need to raise that connectivity. So where do people tend to be or stay, you would need there much better connectivity, for instance. Then you could define that previously or before. And then we also did in the summer, I was talking about the applications. So based on the data of Wi-Fi's, and also already existing open data in Stockholm. The IBM developers developed application that you can in real time see, okay, where are people? If you want to take the subway home, which subways, there's 6 of them. Which should you take? Which is the fastest way? So combining both flow data of the area to also see public transportation information. So this is also a congestion prediction information that you can see before you enter, that you can say, okay, there's this kind of congestion, the prediction is like this. So you get quite much value added information both before and after events. So that's something that we have developed based on that. So as was mentioned before, I mean, what do you want to do? I mean, you don't want just create pilots, you want to do something also afterwards. And we're now looking at could we add different data sources that is already there. For instance, we know that there's parking data gathered in a global parking area. So can we analyze that and get that in the same platform as we have? That could be analyzed. It would give more richer data. And we are also looking at adding camera-based sensors that are not defined to, for instance, read registration plates. They could do different kind of things. So we want to know, I mean, what is the problem with GDPR? I mean, how do you analyze that? You want to just collect the data. How can it be stored? How could it be flowed? What kind of data amounts is there? What kind of connections do you have? So that's something we are going to introduce and run the data into the platform, and then we use different kind of AI analytics and machine learning to define, for instance, this is a cat, this is a dog, this is a pedestrian, this is a bicycle, this is a cargo, this is a bus, and so forth. But we can also look at, is this a queue of bicycles or is this a queue of vehicles? And another step is that information could be then used to steer traffic further away. For instance, we see that there's a congestion going to happen in half an hour. Could we then steer traffic lights 3 kilometers away that restricting vehicles to entering that area? So that kind of predictions could be also done based on that kind of data. So that was a very fast introduction to what we are doing in Stockholm. We organize very much study visits. So if there is any interest of visiting, and there you would be able to see all the 21 smart solutions we are implementing. So we organize pretty much of them. So it's just to contact, and I'm writing a blog and a website, and there's also newsletters. There's fact sheets about our smart solutions, not only in Stockholm but also in Köln and Barcelona, that are 2 other lighthouse cities. So there's pretty much going on. So it was mentioned that Helsinki started in 2016. So we started we were among the first ones, or one of the first ones. So we started in 2015. So this is the 4th year, and next year is the last year of our project. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Mika. Hold on to the microphone and we'll get a few questions if there are any from the audience. Thank you so much for the really in-depth presentation. One of the questions I might throw at you to start with, you were talking about anonymizing the data. It seems like there's a lot of surveillance happening in these cities. How does Stockholm Stad or any city that's going to adopt some of these technologies, how do they assure citizens that they can maintain that privacy in a more connected city?
I think it's very much, first of all, about communication. So before we put up any sensors, we put up signboards telling people that you are now entering an area where you will be monitored. And then we created a website. You could get more information. So, for instance, if you don't want to be monitored, you can turn off that Wi-Fi. And so informing and communicating. Then we get a few questions about that, but very little. I mean, when we were open about what we're going to do, intend to do, and the purpose, I mean, it's for the better good. I mean, it's for all of us. It's not for only the city organization, but it's also for you. So I think that it's really, really important that you communicate openly, and you have the value that you, in our strategy of the smart city in Stockholm, we have defined that you don't get funding if there's no value for the citizen. So even if it's an internal project, you have to look at who is the citizen, what kind of benefits that it creates, and that's something really, really important, I think.
And this communications is getting out to the citizens. So you're saying, you know, the key point is transparency on the part of the city, and the purpose seems like a very very important part of this. If people understand why this is being done, they're more likely to contribite. You could say.
Yeah, I mean, we were doing a quite large questionnaire to the citizens, and asking, for instance, question: is it okay for you if the city collects data about, for instance, people movement? And they said, well. We have already sold our soul to Google and Facebook, so why not?
Sure. And with the GDPR legislation and things like that has come up, has that made that's obviously put a lot more kind of, you could call them roadblocks, but you might call them checks and balances as well.
Yeah, actually it was, we were looking at different kind of options to gather the data, and these were the solutions we selected were the ones that there's a data inspection Sweden had approval of. So they were, for instance, we didn't want at that point to install camera sensors, just openly doing whatever, because it's quite sensitive. I mean, here goes a guy in green scarf, and now he's there, and so forth. So because the data, is it stored somewhere, or is it just collecting? This was a pedestrian. Yeah. So it's, you know, I mean. The same technology that is used in the IBM platform is used in London to detect terrorists. So I mean, it's crucial facial recognition. So you can do whatever. I mean, you can put your own face in that analytics tool, and you can say that, okay, quite good accuracy. You can say the age, the gender, is it a Nordic, Caucasian, or whatever. So they are quite smart already. So we don't want to store that kind of information. We just want to know if it's a bicycle, pedestrian, and so forth. So that's also very important to communicate that we don't want to recognize people, basically.
Other than Justin Bieber, it seems you want to recognise when it comes to Stockholm. So when should we let Bieber know that he may not be welcome next time?
He can call me. I will tell him personally.
Good. Well, you've been warned, Bieber. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you, everyone. Round of applause here for Mika and his presentation. Thanks a lot. While I fiddle around with the slideshow, I will welcome our last speaker for the evening. He's going to go quite big picture on us, you could say. We've got a doctor in the house. We've got Dr. Jonas Merikanto. Grab this microphone, and I will now make that full screen. And here is your clicker. There is the red line there that you can point. Okay. Yeah. There we are. So, welcome to the stage, Jonas.
Okay. Hi. Nice to be here. My name is Jonas Merikanto, and I'm from the Finnish Meteorological Institute, and I'm here to tell you what will come in the future and what we can do to actually influence the future we're facing. So you might have heard about this report that came out a couple of months ago from the IPCC, the International Panel on Climate Change. And this is a special report looking at the rate of climate change at the moment and the emission cuts that are needed if we want to maintain it in a reasonable level. So basically, we are facing at least 1.5 warming from the pre-industrial levels, more or less certainly. Now we're at 1 degree in terms of global warming. So we will go there, but we might just keep the warming on this level if we do very big cuts, because if we go above it, then the really nasty side effects of the climate change will start hitting in. So this will happen around 2040. But if we continue on the path, business as normal, as usual path, then we will hit 5 degrees by 2100. So what will happen actually if we go beyond this limit of 1.5? Well, there will be several impacts. There are temporal damages. We will see a lot more extreme weather and a lot more damage related to extreme weather events. Then there are health-related impacts, much more higher mortality in some countries where there's very hot at the moment already. Very severe damage on the agriculture and fishery, and also some irreversible damages like the loss of coral reefs. It seems that we are losing the coral reefs almost certainly anyway, but let's hope it stays there, because then after 1.5 we are starting to see a big acceleration in the extinction of species as well. And then melting of glaciers and sea level rise. So, in order to avoid this, most of the really serious damage, we would actually need to go at net zero emissions around 2050. This means the whole globe, the developed countries and the undeveloped countries. And we need to start cutting the emissions very soon and very radically in order to get there. We will need to go to net negative emissions actually after this. This means that we need to start capturing carbon from the atmosphere with technology that doesn't even exist at the moment, at least in large scale. It will mean that we need to look at the land use as well and start capturing the carbon the forest to land. And of course, it means that we need to cut down the emissions. So if we look what's going on at the moment, like the extreme weather events, we are seeing a big rise in them, starting from the 1980 to 2010. There are these earthquakes and things that are not related to climate change in any way. They stay constant, but then these events that can be related to climate change, like floods, storms, droughts, they are rising quite rapidly. So we can say that 4 out of 5 natural disasters are somehow can be related to climate change at the moment. These statistics, when we talk about global warming, we say 1.5, 2 degrees. It sounds a bit vague. And it's a metric that we can use as a measure of the climate change, but it doesn't tell you what happens around the world. So basically, what is going on is that, the continents are warming much more quickly than the rest of the world, the sea areas. So this is the observed climate change during the 50 years. Also, the Arctic area is warming really rapidly, at least twice the rate of the global average. So you need to remember that when you talk about, say, 2-degree warming, it means something like from 4 to 6 degrees in the Arctic area. And it's not only the temperature that is rising, also the rain patterns are changing. So basically you can very broadly say that where it is wet at the moment, it will get wetter. And where it is dry, it will get drier. So the Sahara is probably spread towards southern latitudes and also to Europe. There will be quite a lot of drought, probably in the India. Also, the whole monsoon area in here is shifting southwards. And these areas are already suffering from the lack of fresh water. So when you look at the overall vulnerability of the population, you see that more or less the already poor will suffer the most, because there's population growth here, there's already very limited freshwater supply in many of these areas. So these are the most vulnerable. Most of the change happens here in temperature-wise, but we are a well-built society, so we're much safer from the effects of climate change. So if I take a couple of examples from around the world, let's say Helsinki, what's going on in here? Well, so far the Finnish climate has warmed by 2.3 degrees from the pre-industrial era. But actually it's not, again, the whole year. Most of it is during December. It's 5 degrees. Summers have not warmed almost at all. So it's the winter that is warming. The same trend will more or less continue. The winters will get warmer, summers more or less the same, as long as there's no big changes in the Gulf Stream that might come afterwards. Also, it's getting more rainier. If you look at the annual rain rate, we will see that there will be much more rain in Finland. Again, this is during summer, mostly. The average wind doesn't change that much, but some gusty wind increases. Then look at Los Angeles, a bit of a different story. Here the temperature change is roughly the same as the global average. However, the extreme heat is the main concern in Los Angeles. So if you look at the number of days with the extreme heat, it's going higher and higher all the time in this area. And this is what is affecting people's health. Again, in Helsinki, the sea level rise is not that much of an issue because the land is still rising here after the last ice age. And also, most of the sea level rises where the sea is quite deep and close to the equator. So in Los Angeles, it's a big problem. There are lots of areas that are that can be actually left underwater. Then there's a fire hazard. You don't know these fires already from this year, and it's coming on really big issue there. As you could imagine. So what needed to be done? I've put here some social levels of action. So you have the individual level, you have the municipal level, or something less than a country, then the national level and international level. And here's our Joona thinking what he can do. First of all, he's a consumer, so he can affect his consuming habits, and he can vote if he lives in a country that has a democracy. But that's about it. It's not enough. We cannot leave climate change to Jonas, on Jonas' shoulders. So that's why we need international treaties, international policy. But this has been slow as well. From these treaties, and you can affect the national policy, but also, of course, through voting and requiring for change. But actually, this municipal level is the one that is most active at the moment, if you look at actual action. Because if you look at again, the international level, this is the Paris Treaty from 2015. It was based on pledges. There's nothing legal about this treaty. People just, the countries just made pledges that they will make these and these cuts. So they nicely said that they want to keep the warming below 2 degrees and aim to under 1.5. But this is just talk, not action. So they made pledges, but these pledges will take us to 2.5 degrees warming by the end of the century. And it's certainly not enough. So where you can actually do quite a lot to emissions is this cities and municipal level, because many of the solutions needed are related to the energy. Several times there are like energy factories taken care of by the cities, like in Helsinki. Transport solutions, city planning is a big issue. Education, social services, all this can do a lot. So if you look at the examples of local climate strategies now here in Finland, for example, Helsinki wants to be carbon neutral by 2035. Good. Turku goes to their 2029, according to their pledge. Espoo has promised to go there 2050. Then there's 43 municipalities, smaller towns that have made a big pledge, and I will talk about this in this next slide. But then also we have joint international pledges, again, city municipal level. Copenhagen, Johannesburg, London, Los Angeles, so forth. All these cities have promised that their new buildings will be net carbon zero by 2030, and all the existing ones by 2050. So that's something concrete. In Finland, we have this Hinku project. This is run by Syke, the Finnish Suomen ympäristökeskus. Can't translate it, but there's 43 municipalities now that have all pledged to cut their carbon emissions by 80% by 2030. So this is possible. With the current technology, with energy saving, you can make these very big reductions in very various places, like in Lapland, all across the Finland. You just need some ambition. This is what they are like, the trend where they are at the moment. They started at 2007 and aim to go to 80% cut by 2030. This is the model town in Finland, town of E. It's a place with around 10,000 inhabitants, and it's already making a cut of 80% in the emissions by 2020. One small place in Finland. It's the top emission reducer now in Europe. They have a very broad approach. They're looking at transport, heating, also education at the same time, and they can do it. So certainly bigger places should be able to do it as well. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jonas. I have to, I'm usually a guy that likes to joke around a lot about things, but it's some pretty disturbing numbers here in terms of where we're heading. As someone who's studying this quite a lot, Are you hopeful that we're able to, turn this around?
Not completely. We will have to live with climate change as well, so we need to adapt as well. But we can certainly do a lot to mitigate. And now we need to make a decision. Are we willing to commit ourselves or not? It's the time. Time is now. Because if we continue on this path, then some tipping points might also occur. So if Greenland starts to melt with a lot of paste, then there's quite little actually what we can do after that. Yeah. Many of those kind of tipping points. So we need to act now, or otherwise we might lose the game.
And in that, you mentioned that cities, you're here speaking about cities and the role that they can play. You seem optimistic that cities are actually a really good place to start in trying to do something about this? In many ways, because you need local solutions. You need to look at what is going in a particular place, what you can do there. And that's effective as well. You also mentioned this with these international treaties, the Paris Agreement in 2015, that it was just basically pledges, no legally binding legislation that was formed. Are you hopeful that on that level that can improve, or are you less optimistic about that? It has to improve. Well, it will get better, but how soon will it get better? When countries start to commit on these very big emission reductions, that's a question. But I'm optimistic, but we are sort of in a hurry. Yeah. Okay, well, I think it's important also to, remember that this is a really significant challenge that is ahead of us. And while some of the information may kind of be deflating to us, it's really important to hear it and to appreciate the enormity of the challenge. So thank you so much for joining us tonight and sharing your presentation. Were there any other questions for Dr. Jonas from the audience tonight? No? Okay. Well, look, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Another round of applause for Dr. Jonas. Thank you. So this concludes the end of Cities of Change tonight. I hope that you've all enjoyed the evening. I hope that you've learnt something new. I hope that you've been inspired to do something about it. We've managed to bring together some fantastic people tonight, some very bright people who are doing a lot of fantastic work in this space. So thank you again, and I may ask for a round of applause for our guest speakers tonight for taking the time to join us. So thank you very much. The presentations may have ended. The live stream, in fact, will end. So thank you very much for tuning in live to everyone around the world who tuned in for this. Thank you so much. The evening doesn't end now. We do have some wonderful drinks, some food from Rescue. Thank you very much to Rescue for catering the evening tonight. So I encourage you all to stick around tonight. You know who the guest speakers are. You know that they're pretty smart people. So please introduce yourself to them, have a chat, figure out what you can do about helping your city become a cleaner one and a smarter one. So thank you very much from all of us at Loudspring. We'd really like to thank you for joining us tonight, and we hope to mingle and talk with you after this show. So thank you.